In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ, now at the right hand of the Savior as Mahdi. And I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine reminder, our divine warner, the Messiah in this day of judgment in which we now live. It is in their names I come before my family, the righteous of the planet Earth, with the greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
And how is the family this evening?
Fine.
How are you?
Fine. Is it me, or does it seem like these weeks go by real fast?
Yes.
No,
Really
it goes fast. But you know, that happens when you get a certain age, that they tell me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what people are telling me. I don't know, because I don't feel old.
Well, I don't know. Since I'm still 20, I'm still 21, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. That's what people are trying to keep me in their consideration.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm a 72-year-old teenager.
That's what the older generation talks about. I'm 21 with 30 years experience, so that's how it's gonna be.
I like that.
All right, beloved family. As always, before we get started, are there any questions, any thoughts on anything we have covered up to this point? Dianetics, mathematics, science, anything that we can address before we get started?
Well, I just have to say the lecture today was great, but also I was able to, because I have been taking these classes with you, well, I always understand the lectures, but it was so crystal clear to me. And I thought, as I was listening to Brother, that your class and Brother Bertin's class comes in handy. I realized how handy it was, because it was a compliment for me even understanding. It was so clear. It was crystal clear. That's what I'm saying. It's always clear, but it was crystal clear what he was saying based on our training in the classes. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. Anyone else? All right. Let us go ahead and get started. Let me find them. Okay, Brother Lamar. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. I hit it by accident, but what I just really wanted to say to the sister that just spoke, you know, having these Zoom meetings and having these studies is so beautiful, because it gets us on like a study group, like a one-on-one basis. So when we're studying these teachings, and when we then when we actually listen to lectures, because all of it's interconnected. So as we're studying, we're talking about, you know, it's like we're being in tune with the teachings and what's being in tune with the lectures. So that's why you say it's crystal clear, because we've been studying. You know what I'm saying? Like the teachings. And that's what makes us, like, on a one-on-one basis on the Zooms. That's what makes, when we do hear lectures, and sometimes we don't understand it, it makes it clear. That's it.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Yes, sir.
Here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Always. And we have revealed the book to the explaining all things, and a guidance and a mercy and a good news for those who submit. I think we've mentioned this at the beginning of every lecture. We understand the concept that the book that we have been blessed to receive, the Holy Quran, has contained within it the wisdom that we are currently studying, whether it's Dianetics or a handbook for pre-clears or Philadelphia doctorate course or self-analysis. if there's truth in those books, and there is, then those truths are already in our teachings. We just have to start digging and find those jewels in the teachings that we already have received, and in staying in sync with the instructions given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme tech and bring that information and bring that wisdom back in our own language. Then it behooves us to study the tech as well as to go back and restudy our teachings, and then for us to marry the two together so we can line everything up. Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, this subject matter tonight came about. I was reading something as I was going through my extension course, and it was a little paragraph. And as I was reading this paragraph, it was just a lot of, in physics, you have what's called, we did this, I think about a week ago, we talking about cracking atoms. And what scientists do is they take two protons and they fire those protons at high speeds at one another. And when those protons hit, they break into smaller particles. And as a result, they were able to find out that there was particles that were smaller than the protons. So what I try to do is I try to use this same concept when I'm studying something, any subject. I try to basically run my head into it, to shatter it, to break it up into smaller parts, so that as I'm studying, I can see smaller little pieces of what it is I'm studying. Does that make sense? I'm cracking the subject that I'm studying into smaller parts.
Yes, sir.
As I was reading this one little paragraph, and we're going to start at this paragraph basically opened up into everything that I'll present tonight by Allah's grace. And this is taken from the Philadelphia Doctorate course. And L. Ron Hubbard, just this one little paragraph is, and I couldn't fit everything into the presentation tonight. It was just too much information. So he says, of course, it is true that the bacteria can't fasten upon him unless he's weak in some fashion or another. But outside of that, and the fact that you have to treat a broken leg, and if the fellow is bleeding to death and pumping blood all over the place, this is no time to sit down and audit. Put a tourniquet on it, because the thetan becomes inaccessible when his standard communication line, the body, goes out. He doesn't if he's up tone scale, but this is not the pre-clear I'm talking about. Now, there's one little piece of this paragraph really that kind of shot my mind into a different direction. It's where he says, bacteria can't fasten upon him unless he's weak in some fashion or another. Now, as soon as I saw that that part of the sentence, let me preface it by stating this first. When he's talking about the him, who is the him that he's talking about? He's talking about what's called the genetic entity. In the earlier part of Dianetics, he talks about the reactive mind. When he gets up to a book called A History of Mankind, so it's a history of mankind, I think it is when he starts talking about what's called the genetic entity. That book, The History of Mankind, starts out like the first sentence, and I can't quote it verbatim, but it basically says this book is talking about our history going back 76 trillion years. So automatically, when I first went through that course, I said to myself, where did he get 76 trillion years from? I've only heard one individual teach on 76 trillion years, who passed it on to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who passed it on to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. How did L. Ron Hubbard come up with our history going back 76 trillion years? But anyway, in the book, he talks about what's called the genetic entity. And then as you go further up the bridge in the study of the books, he says that the reactive mind is basically the physical body. So our physical body is the reactive mind because this is where all the pain is stored. It's stored in our physical body. Does that make sense? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes, sir.
So this reactive mind / genetic entity is the other mind that's warring against us, as it's told us in the Bible. It's like two minds warring inside of us. I believe it's in the book of Romans, where it says there's a law in my mind that is warring with the law of the members of my body. So even in the Bible is talking about these two minds warring against each other. So you have, and there's a verse in the Holy Quran, and the way that I interpret it, the way I look at this verse, it talks about, I created you in the wombs of your mother. One of you is a believer and the other is a disbeliever. Now, I wasn't born a twin, so I couldn't be born in the womb and I'd be a believer and my twin brother or twin sister be a disbeliever. So the way I look at that ayah is like this. Allah says we come from the womb complete, yet incomplete. I believe that could be speaking with regards to we come with a physical body that's complete, but our spiritual being is not complete yet because we have to grow and evolve in order to master our physical body. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So when it says, I created you in the wombs of your mother, one of you is a believer, one of you is a disbeliever, the way I look at that, I always preface certain things with my opinion, is this, that the center of awareness or the life force or the thetan is the believer. My physical body is a disbeliever. So when there's a hadith that speaks about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, where it says that he made his devil take its shahada. Has anyone ever heard that before?
Yes,
No,
sir.
Who has heard that before?
Sister
Okay.
Angela.
Okay. So whatever that little slinking voice is within us, basically Prophet Muhammad said that his slinking voice took its shahada. His slinking voice said, I can't turn him. I can't make him do anything. So, you know, ashhadu la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I have to take my shahada. I can't make this man turn against the teachings. So when you take that from Islam and put it into Dianetics, we're talking about we're at war. Our jihad is with our physical body. And those of us who may not understand that type of jihad, think about what we go through during Ramadan. We want to do the fast, but there's another voice that says, I want pancakes and eggs.
right.
I want pizza.
Right.
I want this. I want that. Because the physical body is programmed based on chemistry. If sugar gets too low, the body needs sugar. The body doesn't say, I need sugar. The body shows us a picture of some honey buns or something. So when we're craving certain things, it's because our physical body, the word sugar doesn't flash in our head. Our body will flash a picture. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
We get an image of what it is that we think we want, but it's not us that really wants it. It's this reactive mind that wants it. It's the genetic entity that wants it. But because we're still so connected to this physical body, we haven't completely made the distinction between myself being a spiritual being and a life force versus me being a physical body. So we think these are things that we desire, but what it is it's that genetic entity, it's the physical body that's craving these chemicals because the body wants the pleasure-seeking chemicals because the body is based on pleasure. Does all of that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
it does.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Jocelyn, you got the floor.
Yes, it made me think of the scripture in Matthew 26:41, I believe. It says that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. You think that's relevant to what you're
That's
saying?
very relevant because that's exactly what we're talking about. The spirit wants to be righteous. And you know as well as I do, all of us have our shortcomings. But have you ever thought about the fact that the only reason why we have these shortcomings is because we're in this wicked, crazy environment that if we were in a righteous environment, there's certain things we wouldn't even have a desire for.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, the spirit side, that's who we really are, has a desire for righteousness. But this physical body is our biggest enemy. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
I just have a question. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Well,
Isn't that part of synchronicity?
What do you mean?
You said basically we're reacting to our environment.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever watched Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams, he had 3 people walk in their own pace. Started them off different time. Eventually, they were all going the same pace with the same foot. They just grew in sync with each other according to their environment. And even if you've been in the choir before, one of the biggest key things you have to keep in mind when you're in a choir is not to get in somebody else's key. That is right in your ear. That's what I mean.
We are synchronous with this environment, but this environment is not one to be synchronous with. I think that's where you're going with it.
Mm-hmm.
If we could be in the mindset in the environment of Savior's Day, 365 days out of the year, I think we would prefer that to what we have right now.
Mm-hmm,
Yes,
mm-hmm.
yes.
Okay. So I can see, yeah, that's we're synchronous with something that we don't, it's not something we really want to, but that's the war, that's the battle we got to fight right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if we're fighting in this environment to strive to be righteous, imagine how easy it would be if we were in a state or territory of our own where we wouldn't have to even deal with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Synchronicities. Fall right in.
Sister Cheryl.
Yes, sir. I just want to bear witness to what you're saying. And I forgot what subject I was on, but L. Ron Hubbard spoke about we're trying to be righteous. And we're living in a world where the energy, I think he says something about a person with a good energy can go in an environment where the energy is very different or low. And that ethical person will, even though it may be only temporary, sink to that level. And vice versa. You can take a downtoned person and put him around a bunch of ethical persons, and he will rise up even though it's temporarily. I'm not using his words, but I'm paraphrasing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And where you find that same principle, as we use science as a demo kit. In science, you have something called endothermic and exothermic reactions. And all that means is if I take an ice cube and I put that ice cube in a glass of water, if that glass of water is warmer than the ice cube is going to melt. If the ice cube is greater than the glass of water and can produce, if it can produce more coldness, it'll make the glass freeze. And what that means is whatever environment we're in, if we don't have the power to change that environment will have the power to change us. So when you look at Minister Farrakhan, wherever he goes, he brings his environment or his atmosphere with him. So you can't be of an unrighteous mind and stay in that environment too long, because that atmosphere and that environment will convert that environment. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that's right in sync with what we're talking about. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. When I read this paragraph, the first thing that popped in my head was blood pH. Because one of the things that I learned when I was learning under Dr. Lila Africa was that the more acidic your blood is, the easier it is to fall victim to disease. It's based on one thing is based on the pH of the blood. So that's kind of like where we're going with this tonight. We're dealing with how the chemistry of our physical body, and this is going to tie How to Eat to Live with Dianetics and science and tie it all into one, particularly with How to Eat to Live. First, let's look at the lessons. Because Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 30, asks the question, tell us what and how the devil is made. And then the part of the answer that we just want to mention for the sake of this topic, it says, also by thinning the original blood, it became weak and wicked and no more the same. It says, thus, this is the way Yaqub made the devil. So the making of the devil was part of a grafting process, taking the black and the brown germ, and then negating the black germ, sparing the brown germ, and then doing that process. But when you look at the lessons here, it also has something to do with experimenting with or changing or grafting the blood. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because it's very clear what it says. Thinning the original blood, it became weak and wicked. Thus, this is the way Yaqub made devil. So there's more to the grafting process, making devil, than just brown germ and the black germ. It has something to do with the blood as well. So part of the process of making devil involves changing the blood.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how is blood made weak, and how can you make blood wicked? Because it seems like wicked would be like a moral character, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then I start asking questions. I said, well, I wonder, so if the messenger said wicked, I wonder what wicked is in Arabic. And the word in Arabic is fajra. Now it's the same root word as fajr, the first prayer in the morning, but another meaning of the word, a derivative of the root word fajra, means to descend suddenly. So now we're talking about blood being made weak and wicked, and now here we have a word that means to descend. And when the blood pH descends from its original state, which is between 7.35 and 7.45, as that pH goes down, it becomes more acidic. So this lines up with what the messenger says with the blood being wicked. If we go through the route of the Arabic, that part of the problem of what we're going to go with tonight, and I'm trying not to say certain things because I'm trying to let things build up to a certain point, has to do with the condition of our blood. Then in Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 32, it says, tell us the mental and physical power of a real devil. And in part of the answer, it says the devil is weak bone and weak blooded because he is grafted from the original. Therefore, his mental and physical power is much weaker than the original man. Now, here's an interesting thing to keep in mind. We're going to address it further down, but since it's here, we'll drop it right here. When the blood becomes more acidic, and I want you to help me out with this one, Brother William. As the blood becomes more acidic, how does it ill affect the body chemistry, and what does it do to the minerals in our system, particularly calcium?
So, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, brother.
So when I think of acidity, I equate it to having more hydrogen ions, or a large amount of hydrogen ions being present. And those hydrogen ions are able to interact with a number of different elements and combine with them a lot of times. So as you specifically ask about calcium, I'm just gonna say I haven't looked at that specifically, but does it form a calcium hydrogen molecule?
It actually depletes the calcium in the body. And when you deplete calcium, it causes something called osteoporosis. Taking us back to the lesson here, weak bone and weak blood. So it's almost, I believe the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew this, but had to put it in a language that at that time, everyone could understand. He just said weak bone and weak blood. But there's a definite connection between the acidic nature of the blood and the blood being considered weak, and weak bone, which is what we call osteoporosis. And this is why as individuals get older, you have tooth decay, because if a person, and our food has been so depleted of vitamins and minerals that the chemistry of the body is almost like different nations with different types of currency. So you have certain organs that do trade based on calcium. Certain organs do trade based on magnesium. So the chemical is like a currency between two things. Well, the body, one of the chemicals that is absolutely necessary to keep the heart pumping is calcium. So when the calcium is depleted in the body, the body will start robbing it from the bones, because the body feels as though the heart is more important than the bones. Does this make sense?
Absolutely.
It's like we start robbing from different accounts to pay certain accounts. We start selling off certain things to pay certain bills. The body does the same thing.
Right.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
You got the body, and that's what the body is, robbing Peter to pay Paul. The body's like, look, I need the heart, but I don't need these teeth. So it starts leaching the calcium from different parts of the body. Okay. So we have something in our lessons that's talking about devil and connecting it to the weakening of the blood. Did y'all follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So kind of like the scope of what we're going to do tonight is, what is the relationship between the condition of our blood and our mental and physical powers? And someone, as we get down to mentioning fasting, someone just mentioned, if you could mention to me fasting and the increase in mental power, just to remind me, and I'll touch on that before we finish up. Now, as I read that, I started with this what if. And L. Ron Hubbard says, when you start dealing with what if, I think he said you're between 20 and 40 on the tone scale. I said, what if? I said, now, could our thoughts or emotions have a detrimental effect on our chemistry? So the thought came to my mind, can we ill affect the pH of our blood based on our thoughts?
Absolutely.
So thought changing the pH of our blood. Put that in the back of my mind. Then I did the reverse. Could our chemistry, if we have bad pH, could that produce mental illness? So I did it like a full circle. So I said, okay, can our thoughts still affect the pH of our blood? And then if we're not eating correctly and we tamper with the pH of our body, can that produce mental illness?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So then if someone can control our emotions, they can control our chemistry. And if someone can control our chemistry, Food and Drug Administration, then they can control our emotions. And then if you can control the emotions, then you control the chemistry. If you control the chemistry, you can. So it's a vicious cycle that we get stuck in. Y'all see it?
Yes, sir.
The vicious cycle we get stuck in. So if someone can control both, they control 360 degrees of our thinking. So is there a connection between our thinking and our eating?
Yes, sir.
So now let's see what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. He says, we can eat the best food. We can take fast for 9 days or for 20 or 30 days if we want to, and we will still suffer if we don't feed the brain with the right food. These two bodies, the brain and the digestive tract, have much in common with one another. Whatever hurts one hurts the other. We must treat both well. Now, in holistic medicine, they say that the digestive system is the second brain. And if you dissect the body and you look at the pattern formed by the small intestines and look at the pattern formed by the brain, the patterns look the same. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if I showed you a picture and I just showed a small little section of the small intestines, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the small intestines or the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And as Brother William dropped on us about a month or so ago, I think you said, brother, that dopamine is actually produced in the digestive tract, correct?
It is, I think I said then it was serotonin.
Oh, serotonin, okay. I know one of the, what they call the neurotransmitters is actually developed or produced in the gut.
Yes, sir.
Sister Glenda, you got your hand.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
What may I ask? What is serotonin? Yes.
Serotonin. Your body has different chemical cycles. So when your body gets ready to go to sleep and the sun is going down, as the sun diminishes, your body will stop producing serotonin and then it begins to produce what's called melatonin. So these chemicals that we have are actually connected to cycles of the sun. Melatonin is what's produced in order to help you sleep. When you wake up in the morning and that sunlight hits your eyes, it signals the brain to start to diminish the melatonin, and then your brain starts to produce serotonin. So it's a chemical that wakes you up.
Now, what if you can't sleep? Does that mean that the body lacks serotonin?
It could mean many things. It could be that because sometimes I suffer from that. I can't sleep, because my mind is sometimes it's just hyperactive. I'm always thinking about certain things, and it's hard to shut your brain down. But there could be many reasons why you have trouble sleeping. One of them could be the inability to produce sufficient melatonin, but that might not necessarily be the case. There's many things that could cause a person to, if you're talking about insomnia.
No, just can't sleep. Sleep, but they cat naps. Sleep for 3 hours, and then you're up. Hard to go back, then go back, you back up.
Well, let me ask you this. What, if I may ask, what type of diet do you have?
I'm trying to eat properly. I don't eat meat. I eat a lot of vegetables. Trying to drink 6 bottles of water a day. I'm on a sort of special diet. I guess I would say special. Well, the same diet I guess everybody else is on, basically.
Well, one thing that happens is the more you clean, the cleaner your body becomes, your body won't need as much sleep. I know. I know towards the end of Ramadan, I might sleep 4 or 5 hours and I'm good. The cleaning, because one of the reasons why your body needs sleep is to clean the body. Think of it like this. Think of it like this. If you take a large building when is the best time for the custodians to clean the building? During the day when everyone's there, or at night when everyone's gone?
When everyone is gone.
Right. Now, what's the best way to clean the body? When the body is upright or when the body is horizontal?
I don't know. Help me.
Well, if your body doesn't have to fight against gravity, then it would be easier for the body to clean itself during sleep because we're not moving around. Everything has slowed down.
Okay.
And then for some individuals, as soon as you wake up in the morning, the first thing you have to do is either go to the restroom or you have to go and blow your nose.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's like if you look at custodians, one of the last things they do in the morning before they leave is they take all the garbage and they put it in the dumpster. Same concept for the human body. So the body
Yes, sir.
cleanses itself. So the cleaner the body becomes, you may not need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Some people can operate off of 5 or 6 hours.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to take everybody off. I'll
No, that's fine. That's fine. For you, that might be 5 hours might be normal.
Right.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I won't die.
Okay. So then I looked at this like, go ahead, Sister Jocelyn.
Yes, sir. Brother Lookman, when you were speaking about serotonin, doesn't serotonin affect your mood, like demonstrate whether you're happy or depressed, the levels of serotonin that you might have in your system, doesn't that have to do with your mood also?
I'm not 100%
or is that
sure
something
on
different?
I do think it has something to do with dopamine. Brother William, help me out here.
Yes, sir. But yes, serotonin does have an impact on mood and overall feeling of well-being, because as you pointed out, it's a neurotransmitter, so it's not just in the gut, but it's also in the brain. And the system in the brain that receives the serotonin is one that can increase or heighten how well we feel at a given moment, which may be a connection as to why it's also in the gut. And we have what we know as mood eaters, depending on how we feel, we become more sensitive to want to eat and crave certain foods to make us feel better, because we'll get that release of these different chemicals, and serotonin being one of them.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Praise is due to Allah.
All right. So I looked at this as a cycle of action: start, change, stop.
Mhm.
So our thoughts, remember, this is thought, emotion, and effort. So you have the thought, you have the emotion, and the effort represents the physical body. The emotion is talking about the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is kind of like an interface between our thoughts and our body. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
That's like an interface. And if you look at how the brain is structured, you have this pituitary gland, and you have what's called the front or the anterior part, which I believe is connected to the nervous system, and then the posterior is connected to, is it the other way around?
Just the opposite. Yes, sir. The posterior is connected to the nervous
system, and the anterior is dealing with the endocrine system. So there's a bridge in that pituitary gland between the chemicals and the nervous system. So we have these certain thoughts. These thoughts kind of like get translated into chemistry. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
So we start the cycle with a thought, and that thought produces an emotion, which is a chemistry. Then that chemical change, the emotion will produce a change in the chemistry of the body.
Brother Lookman.
Go ahead, brother.
If I may, I think I can help us all to have a mental picture of exactly what you're saying.
Go ahead.
if we think about thought, and we know that thought takes place in the brain, remember that the brain is made up of physical components called neurons. So our thoughts cause certain neurons in the brain to transmit, to fire, is what we say. So when these neurons fire, they release their chemical substances, and then those chemical substances have a downstream effect on the physical body. But the thought itself occupied a physical part of the body as well, called those neurons. If that helped to make things any clearer for us.
Which is why I said in the very beginning, I'll be asking for your help, brother doctor. Because I know you could take it a step further, because this is your area of expertise.
Praise be to him.
So at the last part of the cycle of action is where the chemistry produces the imbalance. And we're talking specifically now with regards to the blood, and that's where we produce the disease. But there's another cycle that we want to look at as well. Again, whoever controls the thoughts can indirectly control our sicknesses or our illnesses. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Then another cycle of action would be, we start with a diet, and that diet imbalances the chemistry of our body. That chemistry, the chemistry changes produce a chemical imbalance. And then that chemical imbalance will produce a mental imbalance. So we're going a full circle right now. So whoever controls the diet controls the thinking. And if you notice, if you go into any bodega in any Black community USA, usually the first shelf you'll see as you walk in is what?
Chips.
Chips, Little Debbie cakes. You know, as soon as you walk in, the first thing you see is, now I'm gonna tell you a real interesting story about Little Debbie cakes. One of the things that Little Debbie cakes have, they have these little packs of powdered donuts. Y'all seen them, right?
Yes, sir.
I think usually there's 6 because he likes everything in 6. We had my very first fire as a lieutenant was at a bodega, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. Once we knocked down the fire, we went inside. We had to do what's called overhaul. We had to look for spots to make sure it wouldn't flare back up again. Everything in this store was burnt. However, on the little rack of Little Debbie cakes, there was a pack of Little Debbie, and I'm not lying about this, a little pack of the donuts. The plastic had melted away. The donuts were still white. Like you could still pluck them out and pop them in if you want. They were, the plastic melted, but the donuts did not burn.
Oh my God.
And what chemical was that was
Flame retardant.
Pull up.
Right? A flame
Little
retardant.
Debbie cakes and look at the ingredients, and then you'll understand. One of the chemicals in Little Debbie cakes is called titanium dioxide. It's the same chemical that you find in honey buns. Anything that has white icing, it's the same chemical they put in paint to make the paint white.
Yeah.
And then there's
And they
another
actually
chemical
got a
in the Little
color.
Debbie cakes.
Dang.
I can't remember the name of the chemical, but it's the same chemical as chalk that you use to write on the chalkboard. But that's a whole nother story. No, that's exactly what we're talking about. Eating that stuff is what is going to convert our blood pH, because we're about to get to that. So the research that the articles that I read to kind of, and I only got pieces because there's way too much information. The research shows that our emotional state can actually change the pH of our body.
Mhm.
Okay. And it also showed that the diet that we have of Western society can affect the pH and actually produce mental illness. So when we ask the question, are we feeding our reactive mind? The point I was trying to make is when you look at the diet of the Western world, this diet actually feeds aberration.
Mhm.
And indirectly, a person that eats a certain, that is at a certain mental state, if that mental state is as the result of pH, that it would almost imply that below tone on a scale 2.0, individuals have a low pH as well.
Mm.
So then the tone scale becomes a pH scale as well. So 2.0 and below, now we're into the acidic nature of food, because it's the acidic nature of food that's producing the illnesses and the sicknesses. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So in auditing individuals that are aberrated, or even straight wiring individuals, one of the key things we want to make sure we focus on is make sure we also try to change their diet. Because one thing that individuals do when they're depressed is they eat what?
Sweets.
Eat sweets. Okay. So everything we're talking about tonight is dealing with the pH of the blood. So one of the articles that I read was called pH of Soul. How does the acid-base balance affect our cognition? So that's one article. Go ahead, brother doctor.
I thank you so much for this course of study, because it's given me cognitions and ways of looking at and thinking about things that I had previously. And the most recent cognition is thinking about it as a two-way dynamic, because even a person that wants to maintain good thinking, they have to equip their bodies with the right and good foods. Because even if they have good thinking, if the body doesn't have the chemistry inside of it, it can't produce the outcomes that the good thoughts would yield, and vice versa. If you put the wrong things in, then those things go in the other direction and have an impact on the thinking because they're present.
It's like, what happens if you plug in something with a certain voltage, but the wiring of that item is not strong enough to carry that voltage? What do you do to the item? You blow it. Same thing is happening based on what you're saying. It's the same. It's exactly the same principle. You know, the Minister Farrakhan had, I think he said something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing it, I think he said something to the effect of, would you put, I think he made reference to a certain type of gasoline in a certain type of vehicle. You know, we're so keen on putting, you know, now you got now you got this commercial where they're driving, they're on E, and she says, go ahead and pull over. I don't put anything except 93. I don't put anything except 93. You know, so he goes all out of his way to get 93 for his gas, but when we stop and get gas, we're getting little Debbie cakes. So it's like, the other article was titled, "Are Some Psychiatric Disorders a pH Problem?" It's from Scientific America, and the subtitle was "Increased Acidity Found in the Brains of Patients and Mouse Models of Schizophrenia and Bipolar Disorder Raises Treatment Questions." So the article was basically talking about how they did studies and they showed that individuals, they did this with cadavers, and they found out that individuals that had histories of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and other mental illnesses, their systems, their pH was acidic. And there was different ways they tried to do it to make sure the acidity wasn't based on as a result of how they died. I think they got access to the records to show that these individuals prior to dying actually had pH problems. So they're saying that schizophrenia and bipolar disorder is actually connected to pH. Then the last article I read was called Panic Attack as a Result of Problems with pH. So some of us are suffering from panic attacks. We have anxiety, and a lot, and on some occasions, this is actually based on the fact that our body has a problem with pH. Now, I was going to include it in this presentation, but I couldn't find the article. But perhaps I'll do that another time. They did a study on the effects of making salat with regards to anxiety, because they've identified anxiety as inflammation of the nervous system. And as a result of making salat, they actually did studies in correlation with the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and how prayer actually reduces anxiety in the human body. So it would almost line up with the understanding that making salat will rebalance the pH, even if it's just for a brief moment. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
No, go ahead and finish.
No, go ahead. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I'm just bearing witness to what you're saying, inshallah, putting this together. So I had a nervous breakdown. And, you know, in this society, they contribute or attribute it to, especially if you have a history. As we know, we can pass down engrams, just like we pass down superstitions. And of course, I didn't have this tool back then, and I was still I may have still been a teenager at the time. But what I did have was Al-Fatiha. And then I later learned the anxiety and grief prayer. My psychosis was so acute that I actually heard voices, which of course is your own voice, but you're not that clear to even tell the difference. You just know that you're dealing with something. And I prayed probably about 30 times a day or more to bear witness to what prayer does, as far as, because I used to have anxiety attacks till my heart was beating that much, as so hard. I also wanted to marry this to something Minister Farrakhan, we are taught the Nation of Islam. This enemy, very recently we just learned that he's trying to alter the God gene. He's trying to alter or play with that part of us that seeks Allah. Now, we all know that, especially whoever actually dealt with anxiety, it's truly psychosomatic. However, if the enemy has been putting things in the food to exacerbate our, you just said it comes from an inflamed
nervous system.
That is crazy. But I'm understanding how possible it is, because now it's, I could get calls 2:00 in the morning, all times a day, and it's on high. I'm talking about they keyed in, and that panic attack and that anxiety is different. Anxiety attack and panic attack are two different things, and they are full throttle where they can be talked down. But now I think you just handed me and us a missing hidden third party, and that's what we're eating to exacerbate that situation. So I just I had to kind of wrap my mind around it. Thank you.
And as you were saying that, the thought came to my mind where how now, even when you go to the gas stations, where it's Wawa or Quick Check or wherever it is that you go, they want you to get a card, and they say, well, if you get this card, you get reduced prices. But what they can do is they can track, what you're eating. So if they want to get you, and they know you love, you know, your history shows that you are particular to this brand of cookie, then they know, well, this is how we can get this person, because we know this is what they eat, this is what time they come in. So right before they get there, let's put this on the shelf. And you know, we have a better chance of getting them through the food. And then by the time you go to the hospital, they can't trace that, well, this person got COVID or this person's dead because they ate the, you know, the glazed donut or whatever it was.
Right.
But they're tracking our history, everything. But if we're eating at home, you know, you can't track what's in the house, because that means you got to come up in here.
Right.
And then when you come up in here, that means you ain't leaving, basically.
Basically. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Glenda.
Oh, the anxiety. I just wanted to bear witness about the anxiety attacks that you was talking about. And I used to have them so bad. And I have went back and forth to the emergency room about 10 different times. And they wanted to give me drugs, but I would not allow them. But I would always ask them, why was I having this issue? They said it's because of old age, you're getting older, and it's something natural, but that didn't sound right to me. So, you know, I had went into prayer, and I decided to go see Dr. Aline. And I asked him if I was crazy. He said, no, you're not crazy. Your body is sick. He said, actually, you're sick. You lack everything in your body that will sustain you and that will keep you here. My main problem was sugar. Now, and I'm not a junk food eater. I make everything from scratch, but the food that I was eating was in such a poor state. So I could not consume. He told me never again. He said rice, potatoes, corn, wheat. He said especially wheat, and definitely no sugar and anything that had, and I couldn't do anything that had a high, what you call a glucose sugar content of 40. Because if I was to start consuming that again, I would have that problem again. Now, one thing I do love, which you called it out, brother, is unsalted potato chips. Now, I would binge on those, really binge, maybe once every 4 months. But I want to bear witness that that thing really have you going crazy, that anxiety. And my daughter, who used to work at the hospital, she said, Mom, they getting ready to commit you because when they try to help you, you keep turning them down. So I made it my business never to return. And if anything happened to me, I'll be at Dr. Lynn's office, and that's where I was at. And it was just that what I was eating. But he said a lot of the food that we eating, he find that a lot of believers are eating good food, but the food is so raw of everything. So we need to have to grow, you know, our foods. You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
so I just wanted to bear witness to that. But that anxiety is serious. And I was walking back and forth in the streets 3 o'clock in the morning, back and forth. I was pacing back and forth, but have you do that? It had me doing that. And it was very frightening. It really was. But I think a lot now it's okay. But sometimes every once in a while, I'm really get a little jittery, you know, if I would consume something I shouldn't. So a
Yes,
diet has a lot to do with it.
oh, yes,
Diet.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Who we got? I
That's
think
Sister Denise.
Denise. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, my computer's acting up.
Okay, no problem.
As you were talking, I was thinking about my 30 years plus in the mental health field, and how they say that people that work with mentally challenged people are sent from God. I didn't understand what they were saying. Okay. Okay. And then what came to mind was when I saw the minister at Aretha Franklin's funeral, and he sat there for I don't know how many hours, but he sat there. And I know thoughts was going through people's head because, hey, you know, this is a minister. He needs to speak. I mean, why you got him just sitting up there? But he said he came to be with the family, you know, because, you know, we lost Aretha. And just to look at him, and, you know, he was enjoying the service, everything. But he didn't speak. I mean, he laughed and you know, when people were coming over to him, you know, he would greet them or whatever, but he was, I don't know what everybody else did, but I just kept my eyes on him because, things are running through my head like, okay, what is that? To sit there, all of the talks, the tapes, the CDs, all of that the minister has done, but he gets at Aretha's funeral and he don't say a mumbling word. And some people might, what are they doing to the minister? Why he can't say anything? And I was looking at his piece, and I was saying, I wonder what did he have for breakfast? How many rock I said, what did he do that caused him to sit there that entire time without saying anything? So that's what I was thinking about. And thinking about, I don't want to go into all the challenges I had working with challenged people, because they gave us mental health days, like plenty of them, because you have to go and you have to go somewhere, Hawaii, go somewhere, but to refurbish yourself, to come back year after year after year. But they said that people that did that, they said you must come from God, because nobody can deal with people with that emotional problems like that. But that's all I wanted to say. And I thought about the minister, what he had been eating and how many Rock Island did he say? Because he did. That's the first time I ever seen him just sit there entirely and not say anything, and was enjoying the service, and So I don't know if you're gonna get to that as you go along, but I was thinking about what caused a person to have the quiet of mind, to where everybody else is going wherever off, and you just there and you just just looking, So I don't know if you're gonna get to that or how, but I thought about that as well as this imbalance and how balanced the minister was in just sitting there. I mean, I don't even think he went to the restroom. I don't think so. Because I sat there and watched him, because he was a perfect example for me of this balanced piece. Because ministers can get not hype, but when the truth is coming and out of him, he can really express himself, and he be on the anointing. He can't even stop. I mean, he just goes on. But this time, he was quiet, and I'm saying, what type of pH balance going on here? In the minister. So that's all I want to say, because I it look like you're going somewhere with this, and I don't want to interfere.
Well,
go ahead.
I would say this, sister, that in Surah number, I think it's Surah number 75, Al Qiyamah, and I think it's in the opening letter to the study program as well, that talks about 3 levels or 3 states. You have what's called Nafs Amara, you have Nafs Lawama, and Nafs Lawama is actually Arabic talking about the self-accusing spirit. And then you have what's called Nafs Mutma'inna, which is the soul that is at perfect rest. And I think the minister has that ability because he is an individual that is at rest or at peace with his Lord. If I was there for an hour and a half, I can tell you exactly what I would be doing. I would be bobbleheading it all over the place, because I can barely sit still for an hour without dozing off or something of that nature. So you have to be at peace, and your body has to have a certain peace within it. If you ever want to just try an experiment, just try to sit for 15 minutes. No cell phone, no TV, just sit quietly for 15 minutes. I know for me, I'm just speaking for me, that is a difficult thing, just to sit quietly for 15 minutes. You have to have a certain type of mind state, a certain type of mindset to be at peace. to be able to sit still, to take in, and there's no telling how much information he was taking in at the time just by sitting there. So praise be to Allah. Sister Cheryl, you have the floor. You're on mute, sister.
Okay, I thank you, brother. As the sister was talking, I thought of something that I always think about when I look at Minister Farrakhan. He is so much there. He has, to me, my opinion, he has so much love and care for his people that his tolerance is so high. I don't know whether mine will ever get that high. I know it won't with my great grandchildren, that much I do know. But his tolerance is so, he's got so much love. And from that love, I sit there and look at him, like the sister said, and that love to me grants him to just be there to listen, to really listen to you, to be tolerant. And even though our little shortcomings, he don't get upset. He sits and listen, understand through all of that. I've observed that, and it impresses me so well. I say, I wonder will I ever be like that. But that's all I want to say, brother.
Yes, ma'am.
I like what the sister said. Thank you, brother.
Just stay on the path. We'll all get there sooner or later.
Yeah. Okay.
So all of
Thank
that
you.
was just to lay the base for the learning objectives, or what it is that we're going to look at. I'm going to try to wrap this up. We've got a little bit of time left. So what effect does diet have on our chemistry? Well, that's what we've been talking about, but we're going to go a little bit deeper into it. How does our thinking or our emotions change our chemistry? And what does chemistry have to do with tone level? And then how can diet actually, based on linking this information together, how can diet actually maintain an aberrated state? You know, I would almost want to go as far as say is one of the reasons why you see so much aberration in the Black community is because of these damn bodegas and the types of foods, the cheap foods that our people are eating. We'd rather spend $5 and get, 10 boxes of Raymond Pride noodles. And that's considered to be one of the worst things that you can eat because of the high sodium content and the monosodium glutamate, which is considered to be what's called an excitotoxin. Then you look at all the potato chips and all the sugary stuff. And I also want to say that one of the reasons why I decided to do this is with the hopes of breaking my own addiction. So when I get stressed out, especially if I'm at work and we have a bad call, one of the first things I do is I come back and it's anxiety and it's stress, it's eat. So I'm actually getting myself prepped up for a fast. I'm actually getting ready to go on vacation. So during my vacation, I won't be at the firehouse. And during that time, I want to focus on a fast. I want to purge myself of the white sugar and just purge myself of all that stuff and really get back on point with my dietary. So this Zoom / PowerPoint was really, it's more for me. And that's one thing Sister Ava said, Sister Minister Ava said a long time ago. She says, many times what you teach on is what you yourself need to hear. So how can diet maintain an aberrated state? And then to the solution is, what type of diet reverses our internal chemistry? So we want to deal with the problem, but now we also want to incorporate a solution into this. So first, go ahead, brother doctor.
I think it's very key that you are going into what type of diet can reverse the aberrations, because as I was thinking about your statement with monosodium glutamate being a excitatory neurotoxin, the type of foods that we eat, I believe in listening to this presentation, are targeted to certain areas and cell types within the body to make that area and that cell environment acidic, because the body in general maintains homeostasis, and it's really hard to make the entire body acidic or alkaline, but particular areas or regions can be targeted to be in that acidic state. So the type of foods that we eat may be those things that go to those specific areas to create that acidic and inflammatory environment in that area, with the downstream effects that the scientists of wickedness and evil have studied to be able to produce those things.
Yes, sir. And based on your statement, one of the articles that I'll bring up on the screen actually speaks briefly about specific areas of the brain that are being targeted. So you're right on point, Brother William. Denise, you have the floor. Go ahead, Sister Denise. I think you might be on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question. I was wondering, what does that acidity looks like? Is it the blue? I mean, can you see it? What does it look like by itself?
Oh, okay. You mean, can you see it by looking at the blood? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. I mean, does it change the form of the blood? Is it lumps in it? I want to know what it looks like. Like when I had a root canal, I wanted to know what was it that was causing all this havoc, about to drive me to zing. And he showed me a little piece of meat, just a small, like a little atom of meat that was driving me insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know about what does the acidity looks like, or once it gets in the body, and it all depends on, I guess, the chemical, what's going on inside your body that brings the acidity on.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. I'll answer your question like this. In the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 20 says these words. It says, "For the invisible things of this world from the beginning are clearly seen through the things that are made." So I'll say that to say this: you can't see the pH of the blood, but you can see the effect that it's having. So when a person is suffering from arthritis, when they're suffering from headaches, when they're suffering from different illnesses, the illness itself is letting you know that the source of this can be the blood pH. So you can't look at blood and say, by looking at it, say that, yeah, this is acidic or alkaline. You can't do that. You see what the pH, the acidic blood produces. So if you see individuals, sometimes you'll see an individual, they have really dull skin. Sometimes you'll see individuals, it seems like their forehead is a different shade of black than the rest of their face. Mm-hmm. I know in holistic medicine, we were taught that when you see the dark circles around the eyes, some people say, well, that person needs sleep. No, in holistic medicine, say there's a problem with the kidneys. So when if you deal with, and I think we got Brother Aaron on. Yeah, Brother Aaron's on the line. He could probably touch on this as well. When you deal with the science of iridology, you can probably pinpoint certain things in the eye that will direct you to blood pH. So you can't see blood pH, but you can see what it produces. The body, when you study holistic medicine, the body will tell you what's going on the inside if you understand the language that the body is presenting. Does that answer your question, Sister Denise?
Yes, sir. Because and then my mind went back to Dr. Goss when he was here doing a workshop, and he looked into. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, he looked into our eyes. This was his examination, was our eyes, and he could look in and see cancer. I don't know how he saw all of this, and why you can't sit still, just all by looking into the eyes. So I thought about that as you were talking. You know, that workshop that we were sitting in, and we had to do a total body cleansing with a 16-ounce bottle of olive oil, and that and the kidney, colon, liver cleanser to remove the kidney stones out of our bodies and stuff.
Yes.
You don't even know you, if I can say this, where you jacked up. You know, you don't even know you messed up, until you have to get, even with Dr. Patina, she has a different way of examining you to see if certain cells in your body, your kidneys, your liver, what areas of your body is weak. So you were bringing me back to all of those exams that I had to, go through, that I had never went through in my life, because you need scientific, spiritual, different types of ways to arrive at what's wrong with us. And then give us a prescription. Yes, sir.
When I was under the tutelage of Dr. Lila Africa, we learned about the iridology. We learned about how to read a person's tongue. You have a person can just stick out their tongue, and their tongue will tell you certain things about the person's body. Right. We looked at the person's face. They have what's called like a face map, where the face itself can give you certain information. So we learned different methodologies. In holistic medicine, see, when you deal with Western medicine and holistic medicine, I believe both can be used hand in hand, whereas holistic medicine is more proactive. And the one thing I learned when I was studying the Chinese medicine is that in the East, or in areas where they're focused on the Eastern type of medicine, that an individual like Dr. William would work for a particular family, and for that month, if no one got sick, he would receive his monthly salary because no one got sick. If anyone got sick, they would call Dr. William. He would come, he fixed the problem, he would get his monthly stipend. If he couldn't fix the problem, Dr. William didn't get paid for that month. So in holistic medicine, you get paid as long as your clients stay healthy. Here, you get paid as long as people stay sick.
Oh my God.
So that's the difference between holistic medicine and Western medicine. And this is why you have the Food and Drug Administration working hand in hand, because one group keeps the chemicals in the food to keep you sick. And then when you get sick, you go to the emergency room. You got to pay one bill for the doctor, and you got to pay one bill for the emergency room visit. Now, Dr. William doesn't do this, but some doctors will pass you on to a special doctor who's probably a friend or a family member, someone they knew. So now they're passing you around like an individual would pass someone around. If you read between the lines what I'm saying. So everyone's getting paid off this person. You take the prescription. The prescription does not solve the problem. The prescription cuts off the ability of the body to signal to you that something is wrong. So now when you're feeling better, what do? You go back to doing what you did to get sick. You eat. And then what happens? You get sick again. So the way it works, and this is why I believe Western medicine is good to treat stuff that needs to be treated right now, that can't be fixed by a holistic doctor. But holistic medicine is something that's good from the standpoint of being proactive. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just think about say we've been had.
We've been took.
We've been hoodwinked.
Yes, ma'am. Most definitely.
Yes, sir. Thank you, beloved.
You're very
Oh my
welcome.
God.
Sister Glenda.
Give me a justice.
The reactive mind. What is that? The mind that gets emotional, react very fast when something's an issue, or if you have a problem,
The
or if you
reactive
don't
mind.
do it about it.
Say
Yes,
again.
the reactive mind. What is the reactive mind in Dynetics?
The
What is
further you go in the reactive with regards to the tech, L. Ron Hubbard teaches that the reactive mind is actually the physical body. The physical body is where all the trauma is stored. So in Dianetics and Science of Survival, he talks about the reactive mind. He talks about what's called in theta, what is interbulated theta. And it boils down to the spirit is imprisoned in the flesh, meaning the flesh has more power than the spirit. So when the body says, I want to eat a whole pizza, we go get a whole doggone pizza, or I want ice cream. I got a craving for a burger. And then we go drive and get a burger because the body is controlling the mind. So
okay? So
the reactive mind is the physical body. The physical body makes demands on us. The physical body whispers. It's the slinking devil who whispers into the hearts of men. The whispering, slinking devil knows that someone likes Chick-fil-A, so it says, why don't you go ahead and get a chicken sandwich? And so it whispers to us, and then we think that's just us thinking that I just want a chicken sandwich. No, the body is directing. In Dianetics, he says it's like you become like a marionette. You're like a puppet, and someone else is pulling the strings. Does that make sense?
yes, sir. So what kind of pH would cause that type of thinking, or would cause that reactive mind to do that?
When you get to mental illness, because if you're dealing with reactive mind, and you're talking about re-stimulation and controlling the pre-clear, you're talking about tone levels below 2.0. As we're going to get into it, they're going to show that these lower tone levels, these emotions, fear and anger, are actually a pH imbalance.
Okay.
So we're going to tie the tone scale with the pH. So it's almost like the body turns on when the pH drops below a certain level. Now here's another key. Since it's here, I'll drop it here. Studies have shown. Now the Most High Elijah Muhammad said it in How to Eat to Live, book 2. He says that if you want to raise yourself spiritually, fast for 3 days. So 3 days is connected to raising someone on a spiritual level. When you go and find the research shows that a 3-day fast will rebalance the pH from an acidic point back to where it's supposed to be, between 7.35 and 7.45 on the pH scale. The body will reset itself pH on a pH level from a fast. So the messenger gave us the prescription a long time ago. It's just that we want to eat Krispy Kreme and be spiritual at the same time.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I'll be still. I'm gonna listen all the way out now. Thank you.
Voila. Okay, so what does the messenger say to us about diet in the blood? And then as we've been talking about pH, it's gonna allow us to kind of see this from a different perspective now. He says, we eat meat, but yet meat is not good for us. It becomes a habitual tool. This type of food poisons the blood and goes into the flesh and cannot help but transform and destroy the surface of the flesh. So when individuals that have a high consumption of processed foods, high consumption of sugars, and then when you factor into these foods, you're dealing with additives, preservatives, and dyes, yellow number 5, blue number, I think it's blue number 3, and there's 2 types of blue dyes. You have red 40, you got yellow 5, and they've already linked these chemicals to different types of diseases and cysts and tumors. So as the pH of the blood changes, it'll actually change the surface area or surface appearance of the flesh. And then how does meat poison the blood? Well, you can look at it from the perspective of the high consumption of meat actually makes the blood acidic. That's number one. And number two, if the animal, as we already know, if the animal is killed under fright, so that you have adrenaline in the meat or fear, because fear is a chemical, then when you eat the meat, what are we eating? We're also eating the fear. Then he says on page 47, fast. It cleans the impurities out of the blood and causes the body to eliminate the poison stored in it from previous meals, sometimes from previous meals of many years. But the question is, when he's talking about these impurities, he never specifies, but we're looking at this from the perspective of these impurities. Of these impurities, one of these impurities we could say is the blood pH. The blood is being cleansed of its impurities because the impurities, let me get this right here, have nothing to keep them empowered to live. So as we change our diet and as we limit to 1 meal a day, 1 meal every 2 days, 1 meal every 3 days, what's happening? We allow the blood to regain the proper pH balance.
So which book are you in, beloved?
This one is
How do
from
you
book,
delete-
this is from book number 2.
Book number 2. Okay.
Number 2.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Then he also says, fasting is good for us. It gives blood time to cleanse itself, and in doing so, makes us think clearer. Now, when you fast for 3 days, there's a whole host of things that take place within the body. And the Most High Elijah Muhammad didn't give us it in this way, but it doesn't mean that he didn't know of this process, because he was taught by the Lord of the worlds. So when you fast for 3 days, what the scientists today have realized, what we've already known for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, they're just now realizing that when you fast for 3 days, one of the reasons why a person can go for a long period of time without food is that the body will begin to clean itself of different deformed and malformed proteins, break those proteins back down, and reconsume those proteins as energy. And it's a process called autophagy. Auto means alone, and phage is talking about eating. The body will begin to eat itself in a positive way. It cleanses the body, but it takes what it takes to cleanse, it converts it to energy. And this is why an individual can really, if we have the discipline, we can fast for a week, 2 weeks. The messenger says 20 days, 30 days, we can do it. It takes discipline. And then another thing is this, the body converts from using carbohydrates, it converts to using ketones. And the research has showed that the brain becomes more efficient when it's burning ketones versus carbohydrates. I've heard of individuals that before a chess tournament, they will actually fast so that when they're playing chess, their thinking is more clear. They do not consume food right before a chess tournament. They fast. So in fasting, it allows our body to cleanse the blood, the pH gets rebalanced, and our thinking becomes clearer. And when the body becomes clear, we don't need as much sleep as we would. Sometimes we need 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep. It's because our body is toxic. And since we're on that level, another point is this: adipose tissue, body fat. Some people say I'm big bone. No such thing as a fat skeleton. Never have seen a fat skeleton.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
But what happens is this. Let's say you're paying $500 a month because you had a whole lot of stuff stored in a storage unit. Okay. So the first thing you want to think of is, I got to reduce this because paying $500 a month is too much money. So what you have to do, you have to find a way to get rid of the stuff that's stored in the storage unit, correct? As you reduce the stuff that's in storage, you can get a smaller unit. Now you might only pay $300 a month. Then you get rid of more stuff. You only have to pay $200 a month. Eventually you get rid of enough junk, and then you might only have what's necessary, and you might have a storage unit that only costs $100 a month. the body operates the same way. Fat tissue is where the body stores toxins. So if we're working out, but we're not eating the right foods, we can't see the definition of the muscle through all the adipose tissue, because the adipose tissue is still storing the toxins. When they say, one of the first things a personal trainer, my oldest daughter's a personal trainer, one of the first things they say is drink a gallon of water a day. Because what that does is it starts to flush the toxins. And when you start getting the toxins out of your system, your body says, I don't need this adipose tissue anymore because there's nothing to store in it. So your body will start shedding the body fat. So one of the reasons why we're staying in the condition that we're in, and I'm one of them, is that it's not because we're not getting the exercise we need, our body's not letting go of the toxins. Once we get toxins out of our body, the body will let the fat go because the fat is just storage. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, sir, it makes sense. Yes, sir.
Whole lot of sense.
So then the question is, how does fasting cleanse the blood? Okay. And what is being removed during the fast? And this is what we've already been talking about. We've been talking about getting the impurities out, bringing the blood pH back in balance. The messenger says he's talking about cleansing the blood, getting the impurities out of the blood. So now the question is, and I just answered this one, what chemical effect does fasting have on our thinking to allow us to think more clearly? It allows our body to convert to different types of gasoline, basically. Our body, it becomes more efficient. As we're fasting, not only will our thinking become clearer, our heartbeat will slow down, our blood pressure will actually go down. And here's another thing. When our pH gets too high, we will suffer from what's called respiratory acidosis. Our breathing will increase because our breathing is trying to blow off this excess acid. Is that correct, brother doctor? Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. So now go back to our problem book. There's one uncle that breathed a certain amount of air, but another uncle breathed even more air, right? And this one that was breathing more air, wasn't he on all these prescriptions that he was taking per day? So his breathing had increased. Why? Because if you look at how the body operates, when we think other than self and we eat other than self, we produce an acidic environment in our blood, and then that produces what's called metabolic acidosis, meaning there's acid in the chemistry, and then you have respiratory, meaning your body's trying to blow off the acid. Our body's always trying to fix itself, but we keep putting the toxins in, the body's trying to really repair itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Good. Brother Doctor, are we good? So far, everything's flowing good, brother Doctor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If I make a mistake, brother, correct me. Correct me. It's been a while since I worked in the field, but as I study this, a lot of the stuff is actually coming back.
Brother Lukeman?
Yes, who we got?
This Brother Aaron.
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, just a quick question, brother. You're doing fine, brother. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, man, he said his field is mathematics, brother. You own it, man. Praise be to Allah. I greatly appreciate it. But I have a question for you. Can you just touch on a little more? You know, when they say they got the raccoon eyes, you know how the people have the dark rings. You said it was kidneys.
So in holistic medicine, one of the things they look at is you can look at it from an iridology standpoint. Iridology will tell you a lot of information, but then there's another way to assess is by reading the face. And different areas of the face will give you insight as to different organs in the body. And the way that when you look at, they say that the eyes, when the eyes have the dark circles, that individual actually has problems with their kidneys. So when you have the organs that come in dual pairs, like lungs,
right.
kidneys, And then
Right.
you deal with this, the sexual organs, the testes and the
Right.
ovaries. Being that the eyes are paired in holistic
Right.
medicine, they say there's a connection between the eyes and the kidneys.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay.
There's certain ways to read the forehead. You know,
Do
you
you
can
have,
look at certain things, and then when you like when your background is in iridology, correct?
yes, sir.
So there have been times when you look at probably someone's eyes, you'll see something immediately, then you'll ask them questions, and they confirm what you had already went through in your mind, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the body communicates.
Right.
Yes, the body
Right.
communicates.
Do,
But with
do you
the
have,
eyes, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the eyes, from what we were taught, the eyes give us insight
Yes,
into the kidneys.
Right. Do you have where I can get information on the facial reading part?
Dr. Africa mentions it in a book called African Holistic Health, or
I got that.
African Holistic Health. If you Google holistic
Facial reading.
facial map, it'll put up all these images, and it'll show you which region of
Okay.
the face is connected to different internal organs.
Yeah, I forgot we got these cell phones today. I'm sorry, but yes, sir.
That's all right.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Yes,
Brother,
sir.
is that okay, I got a hand up, but there's no number.
That's Sister Denise, probably.
Okay.
Is that me?
That's you. Okay, go ahead, Sister Denise.
Okay. When my mom was passing away, and we, because she said she smoked for 50 years, and I almost had a stroke looking at 50 years and how much cigarettes that was times, when you multiply all of that. And so when I took her to the doctor, he said, the only way I know how to explain what's going on with your mother is, let me show you what a healthy lungs look like. So he showed me the healthy lung, and he said, are you ready to look at your mother's lung? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. And when he showed me my mother's lungs, I mean, I had to hold myself. I think I backed out. I was about to pass out because I didn't know how she was breathing. She had one small hole in a small part of her lungs that she was breathing out of. And it was like she was suffocating because all of the soot from the cigarettes and all of that was on her lungs. I almost passed out, I'm being honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like just to think about it, 50 years of 3 packs of cigarettes a day times, and what that really did to my mother's lungs, where you couldn't even see the pinkish in it no more. Wow. You could forget about it. So, and then they were trying to get her to take chemo. She took the radiation, and she was like, I'm not doing all that. Okay, I messed myself up. Whatever I got left, okay, let me go with it. This is what she said. So he wanted me to try to talk her into it. I say, well, her life's been with her longer than it had with me. So let her make her own decision, whatever she wants to do, because that's her life, But I remember when he showed me that picture, Brother Lukman, of my mother's lung, and all kind of thoughts was running through my head. And I ran to the health food store. This is the truth. I thought I could say, no, it's bringing tears to my eyes because I was in the health. I knew I could save my mother. I knew it. They had stuff in the health food store. I could just give it to her. She could just take it, and it'll reverse all of that stuff. I wanted to save my mother, and my mother was like, "See, I've been smoking too long. You can't. I know you're trying to save me, but you can't save me." And I could not believe that the holistic part could not wipe that, the stuff off of her lungs clean, And I had to come to the realization I couldn't save her, And she was like, I know you trying, but don't spend your money on that because, this is it for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, that was it's not a cognition, but it was just part of my life that that I had to, let go. And I was thinking, no, I'm not gonna let go. Mama, it's something in the health food store I can get for you. She was like, no, you can't get anything from me. So that was part of, my journey with trying to heal my mother through holistic. And she was like, I'm beyond that. And I could not believe she was beyond it, but she was. Yes, sir. So that's it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for
Yes,
sharing. Most definitely.
Yes. So I'm glad we on this, brother Lukman, and so I see why you just can't see the acidity because it's going through so many channels. A red dye, 40 blue dye, and soy, and I mean, our poor little body's going through everything. And the yes, sir.
No, go ahead.
Now I was thinking the chemo and all of that on top of all of that. They say it helps, but I've seen the start, change, and the end of that cycle. The end of it is, you go to dialysis, you get dialysis 3 times a week, you keep going, you get weak, and then sooner or later you get so weak you can't even stand up, and then the next thing you can't breathe, it's bothering your heart, and then the end result cycle is 6 feet under you and the graveyard. And it's just been that same cycle that I watched over and over again. That's all I wanted to say.
As you were speaking, this is the cognition that came to mind. In the life of the prophet, peace be upon him, there was a point where there was a group of I think it was the head of each of the tribes, and they wanted to actually take his life. So they had planned on killing him in his sleep. And the plan was, if each one of us stick him with the knife or the arrow, whatever it is we're going to stick, since there's no way to tell which knife actually killed him, then none of us could be held accountable for killing the prophet. Are y'all familiar with that story?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Same principle, modern time, that's the Food and Drug Administration. Everyone is sticking us. When we go to the hospital, no one can be blamed. Everyone's sticking us with these chemicals, but no one can be blamed. No one can be held accountable. And I've noticed it was interesting that last year, everyone that got sick, it was COVID related. But now everyone now that gets sick as a result of the vaccine, they say that's based on prior medical history. So it's like we only will take credit for it when it's convenient, but the system is set up in such a way that you can't pinpoint that the sickness you have is based on 10 years of Chick-fil-A or 15 years of Big Macs. You can't do it. So it's the same, to me, it was the same concept. Food and Drug Administration, they're all sticking their arrows in us from a chemical standpoint, but no one can pinpoint which chemical is actually killing us. Sister Anya, you have the floor.
I think she needs to unmute, beloved.
Anya, you're muted. All right, let's go on to we'll come back to Sister Anya. Go ahead, Sister Glenda.
I just wanted to ask one question after you get finished.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. What's the question?
What is uric acid and how does it affect the body?
Oh, uric acid is, I got to go back into my files. Uric acid is the byproduct, I think, of digesting proteins. That's what builds up and produces what's called
gout.
Gout. Okay. But I'm quite sure our resident doctor could give a much better answer on that one, if you would. Brother William.
I only can call the chemical formation of uric acid, and that its buildup, as you did point out, leads to gout. But it's the chemical process of the breakdown of nitrogen component protein.
Okay. I think I was a doctor in my previous lifetime. Did we connect with you, Sister Ania? You with us? Okay, well, we'll keep going. Then the messenger says, some people love a lot of sweet and starchy foods. We should eat a little of both, but never to indulge in too much of it. It will start sugar boiling in our blood.
Whew.
He says, use no drugs to keep blood sugar down. Just eat right. Stop eating sugar and starches, and the sugar in your blood will clear up. I know because I have self-experience. So again, we're talking about sugar. We're talking about how it affects the blood. Overall, what effect does meat, sugar, and other elements in the Western diet have on our blood? The answer, the Western diet causes an imbalance in the blood that increases the acidic nature. So we're talking about the acid. And different diseases are actually a result of our blood being too acidic for a prolonged period of time. So certain diseases become chronic because our blood is too acidic over a period of time. So now, which foods have been shown to increase the acidic content of food? Now, I did the research, and basically I went to healthline.com, and they said, well, grains, sugar, processed foods, meat, soda and sweet beverages, basically all the foods that the messenger told us not to eat. So we already have the right prescription. And modern medicine is just now catching up with what the messenger told us to do years ago. So now we're going to touch on this, and then we're going to get ready to close things out. Feeding our reactive mind. So we're going to look at how emotions and chemistries are connected. So now, blood pH. The pH of the blood reveals if it is acidic or if it's alkaline. And the range is from 0 to 14. So there's this range. The normal range for blood is 7.35 to 7.45. And if it's below 7.34, it's considered acidosis or a higher acid content. If it's outside the normal range, it's considered to be, the term is alkalosis, and that means it's more basic. Now, what's the relationship between acids and bases? Well, when you look at what's called the pH scale, batteries have what's called battery acid. Stomach acid is considered a 1. Anyone who eats a lot of lemons or vinegars, eventually you'll feel like a little burning on your lips or you're burning on your tongue. That's because it's very, very acidic. When you deal with Tums, they're called antacids. You're taking something to neutralize the stomach acid, which means you're taking something that's basic. When you add basic to acidic, you're bringing back a balance. When you're using drain cleaner is they say it's caustic. It's a base. So at both extremes, they're very detrimental. Water is right in between. And now I almost want to go as far as saying, when they say coffee increases the acidic nature, but I also remember the messenger talking about what's called egg coffee. And when you make egg coffee, I believe one of the effects that egg coffee has is by using the eggs, it actually reduces the acidic nature of the coffee and makes it go easier on the body, which is the reason why you use the egg and the shell. It reduces the acidic and makes it more, it brings it more up to an alkaline state. So
It also coffee also decaffeinates the coffee.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. So in betterbones.com, it said, over the years, I've noticed again and again that emotional distress worsens metabolic acidosis. We know that emotionally charged thoughts, such as worry or fear, cause production of stress hormones, the best known of which is cortisol. Cortisol impacts the body in many ways, promoting a loss of minerals from the body and increasing the acid load, which is bad for your bones. It goes back to our lesson saying weak bone, weak blooded. Our thoughts cause a chemical imbalance by way of hormones, and this is actually having an ill effect on our blood. It lines up with our lessons, and it lines up with How to Eat to Live, where it talks about impurities in the blood. We're talking about impurities, but we're dealing specifically with acidosis. So if emotions lower the blood pH, could we say that when we are aberrated, our blood is being made weak and wicked? Could we say that? We could probably say that. U.S. National Library of Medicine National Institute says that unlike renal system, respiratory system represents some kind of mutual relationship with psychic apparatus, talking about the mind, especially its emotional compartment. Any kind of emotional arousal, as it occurs in states of fear, anger, excitement, and even love, but love is not a negative. We're not talking about love as a negative emotion. But when you look at these different emotions, they all have their own respiratory pattern. This is why meditation is so key, because in meditation, you are restoring a natural respiratory rate. These respiratory patterns can influence the pH of body fluids and thereby exert a thorough effect upon all the bodily organs. If we are breathing excessively, we are producing a certain state in the blood. And as we say again?
As alkalosis.
Alkalosis. So that's why they tell you to breathe into a paper bag, because now you want to try to recirculate certain things to bring certain things down. In the article called pH of Soul, how does acid-base balance affect, got this thing away, our cognition? He says, as we know, human self-awareness not only perceives outer environment, but it also has a kind of intuitional awareness of internal events. In other words, self-awareness lies between inner and outer world and strong forces from inside putting pressure on the self-awareness. So you have these forces on the inside putting pressure on self-awareness. It's the same thing as saying genetic entity putting pressure on the thetan. Does that make sense? We're all good with that? Pressure on the inside is the genetic entity.
Yes, sir.
If you look in Surah 50, I believe it's Surah 50, verse 16, it talks about every soul has a driver and a witness. And when you look up the word driver in Arabic, the Arabic word is saikun. And saikun means that which is on the inside that drives us to do that which is negative. So genetic entity is in the Scientology, but it's also describing something in the Holy Quran called the driver. And in medical terminology, he's saying that it's a strong force from inside putting pressure on the self-awareness, which from the Islamic standpoint, we can say that is the life force. From the Dianetic standpoint, we can say the thetan. Go ahead, Sister Cheryl. You're on mute.
Just real quick, as you were talking and everybody was talking, I had a great cognition. I guess I've always realized it, that we are a blessed and loved people. Because Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in his book, he came to give us abundance of life. And I've heard that all my life, but it just hit me. He came to give us, when his sister was talking about the cigarettes, and brother was talking about the egg and the coffee. Brother William, I remember I was knee high, and my mother would put that egg in the coffee. I said, this woman has lost her mind. Everything, well, of course, you know, I was young. I didn't have much sense. Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying, as a child. But I seen her do these things, and she always say, Elijah Muhammad came and give us abundance of life. I said, I'm sick of hearing this woman say this. But all of it had significance. And brother, you and brother Luke and brother William brought that back to me. He loved us so much. We're such a chosen people. He's going to put us on the right track, because we've got to, at some point, get out and help out people to understand this.
Definitely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sister.
Brother Lukeman.
I got Sister Keisha, and I got Dr. William. Go ahead, Sister Keisha.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I was just going to say that Sister Ania put her question in the chat, sir.
Okay. That would be a good question for Brother William. The question is, the condition of dry eyes or watery eyes, what does that say about the condition of the kidneys?
I'll leave that one to you, Brother Lukeman. I haven't studied that aspect of it.
I honestly wouldn't be able to say what the dry eyes or watery eyes would have to do with the kidneys, but what I will do is I will go into my library of books and see if I can find some information so that I can perhaps bring some type of answer to that question, Sister Ania. I'll see if I can get a response for you and get that to you. All right.
And Brother Lukeman,
Yes.
if you come up with a formula, let's see if we can put it in a bottle.
You're right.
For that dry and stuff. Once you figure that out,
Yeah.
Brother Scientist.
That'd be a good one.
Okay. That will be. Yes, sir.
This, in the article, it says a very old Japanese haiku. A haiku is a word that means proverb. Says, if you'd like to see the moon's reflection precisely in the pond, it should be still. Otherwise, the reflection would be distorted. Zen interpreters interpret this haiku as an indication of necessity of emotional calmness, as we were talking about the minister earlier, and optimally of arousal for correct and precise perceiving of an environment. The higher the level of arousal is, the higher the turbulence is, and then the more distorted representation of the world in the mind. So if you look at a little pond of water, if that pond of water is in commotion, you can't see a clear image if you're looking to see the reflection of your face. However, once that pond, that water, the pond becomes very, very calm, you can see a perfect reflection of your face. And what they're saying is that the same thing happens with the mind. Many of us don't know who we are as an individual because we're so busy running to and fro, you know, like Hagar running between the Safa and the Marwa. We don't even have time to look at ourselves to know who we are as an individual because we're always zipping and zinging trying to do certain things. You know, we're rarely in a position where we can sit still because this environment is not conducive to sitting still. So, does someone have something? Okay. In the last article, go ahead, Sister Jocelyn.
I was just to what you just said, another reason too with us is if we are constantly watching TV or listening to the radio, you know, doing something other than self-reflection, we're not giving the God within the opportunity to develop because we're always putting somebody else's thoughts and words into our mind.
And as we're showing, if someone else can control your thoughts, They can control your emotions. They can control your chemistry of your body. Then just by sitting in front of the TV on a certain level can produce a sickness because they can control emotion. So you're absolutely right, Sister Jocelyn.
So, Brother Luke,
Go ahead, Sister Denise.
so the eyes are the window to the soul.
Most definitely. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I was thinking about as you was talking. The eyes are the window to the soul. Because what we look, it writes on you, or the last thing you look at, you know, you go to sleep thinking about that, or something like to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the window to the soul. Okay.
You have to be very careful. Now, I'm a video game. I like playing video games. You know, when I'll take a break from studying, I'll play a video game. I have one game that I go into. It's a virtual reality. So I put on a little headset, and you're actually inside the video game. Well, in this video game, you go around, you kill these zombies. Well, one night I got carried away. I lost track of time, and I took the headset off, and it was late. I said, I gotta go to bed. And sure enough, that's what I was going through in my sleep. I'm sitting there dreaming, and I'm still killing zombies. So what I try to do is at 8 o'clock, I try to show. I don't really watch a lot of TV as it is. I might take a break, watch a little TV, and come back, but I'd rather have my head in a book. At 8 o'clock is when I try to shut everything down. I'll take a nice hot shower, meditate, and that's when I might get a book and just kind of read. I let my brain relax. I strive to make my salat. I'm not 100% on it, but I try to make those calming things the last things I do before I go to bed. Because you can take a lot of this stuff out here, and when you go to bed, your brain is still there, and you bring that into, you know, because all of us have had that dream where you're terrified, and when you wake up, you said, oh my God, thank God that was just a dream. You actually thought it was real, right?
Yeah. So I remember in Scientology, when you are bringing a baby forth in the delivery room, they were saying it has to be silence in there, because, you know, the newborn, you know, he has came into an environment, and you can't have a lot of talking in that type of environment. Mm-hmm. How it would affect the newborn child. And Ishmael was talking about the pressure within and the pressure without, how to balance it. And I guess that's why, you know, when you get anger, your blood boils, or what you say, mm-hmm. You know, and that's what happened to my sister's father. He became so angry that he had a heart attack and died because he couldn't control it. It was like it took him over and took him out at the same time. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh my goodness. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with the baby is this: the baby coming to birth is such a traumatic incident that, remember, the engram is not just the incident. The engram, the problems with the engrams are the circuits. So when the baby is coming to birth, it's going through a painful experience. And then the talking that takes place during the childbirth, that's when you're actually implanting the first engrams. The first engrams are, so it's almost like born into sin and shaped into iniquity is for real. When the baby is born and you hear the doctors, whatever the doctors are saying, that circuit is part of the baby's first engram. Because you have an emotional situation and you have words. Now, the baby doesn't understand what's being said, but the baby can understand the vibe with those words. And when the baby gets to a certain age where the baby understands language, if the baby hears those phrases again, that's your key in. Does that make sense? Sister Denise?
Yes, sir. That makes a whole lot of sense.
So that's why we're taught, don't say anything during childbirth, because you're implanting the first engram.
Right, right.
Right.
And also,
go ahead, sister.
Also, brother, can you mention, if somebody fall down on the steps, like if I'm walking, I'm falling, down and y'all are around me, can you,
Same principle. When you fall and you're hurt, your analytical mind has if you're almost slightly unconscious, your analytical mind is off, but your reactive mind is on. So anyone that comes around to assist you during that time, if you're not all there, it should be silence, because it's at that time whatever is said becomes part of the engram. Same concept, same principle.
And I used to see the African mothers, when their baby would fall down, they wouldn't pick them up. They wouldn't do anything. They just look like they was trying to see his response, and the child looked at the mother like, you gonna say I hurt myself? She didn't say anything. She just looked. And I was wondering, why was she so quiet while this child, was having an accident? But I understand when an emergency, the first thing they tell you to do is to stay calm.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm seeing why they tell you that. Yes, sir. I'm having some cognitions tonight. I'm telling you.
That's why we do this. That's why we do this.
Sir.
And you have to stay calm, because once you get emotional, you can't think straight. When we pull up to a burning building, if you start to panic, then you already have lost. You have to stay calm in order to figure, okay, I got to do this. I got a cycle of action. I don't say I got a cycle of action, but I know I got to make sure I get this done. I got to do this. I got to do this, and I got to do this in that order. You have to stay calm, because as soon as you get emotional, rational thought goes out the window. If when a doctor has to go into surgery, like especially an ER doctor, part of what we had to do when I had to go to school to be a paramedic, we had to spend time in the ER. And sometimes we would have to be there when these traumatic cases would come in. And if you see someone come in on a stretcher and their arm is laying on top of their chest because it's not attached, you can't lose your mind. You have to stay calm. You have to know, okay, we have to get an IV. You got to get this person intubated. We got to do this. We got to do this, and we got to do this in certain order. Someone comes in and they're having a cardiac arrest. Okay, they have to be intubated. Make sure they got their oxygen. Make sure you got your epinephrine. Back at that time, we used to have what's called mag sulfate. You got to do certain things in a certain order within a certain time period. You have to stay totally calm. Once you get emotional, you've lost. Anyone who studied martial arts, if you're sparring, as soon as you get emotional, you lose. So that carries over into many, many, many different things. Darn, let's land this plane. In this article, it said, increased acidity found in the brains of patients in mouse models of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder raises treatment questions. This was the subtitle of the article. They said the human brain frequently undergoes changes in acidity. This is what I was saying earlier, Brother William, which spikes from time to time. One main cause of these temporary surges is carbon dioxide gas, which is constantly released as the brain breaks down sugar to generate energy. Yet, the overall chemistry in a healthy brain remains relatively neutral because of processes such as respiration, which expels carbon dioxide, help to maintain the status quo. As a result, fleeting acid-base fluctuations usually go unnoticed. So there's little places where it takes place. Then it says, but a growing body of research suggests that for some people, even slight changes in this balance may be linked with panic disorder and other psychiatric conditions. Recent findings provide further evidence that such links are real and suggest that may extend to schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. So again, they just bear witness that chemical pH imbalance has a connection to mental disorders. And then it says, study casts new light on the brain mechanisms behind recurrent bouts of intense anxiety. This is how one of my patients recently described her panic attacks. Her diagnosis is panic disorder. The cause of this condition is still not understood, but we have long known that the vulnerability to panic disorder is strongly genetic. Now, A recent study from the laboratory of John Wemme at the University of Iowa may have revealed an important new clue to the underlying cause of recurring panic attacks. It may, in effect, be a problem of pH, of acidity at key junctures in the brain. So you have key points in the brain that when they have high acidic levels, these are causing the panic attacks. Now, when we're dealing with the brain, we're talking again about the nervous system. So if our thoughts are producing an acid environment, we may be the cause of our own mental imbalance. And if we're eating the wrong foods, we could be causing our own mental imbalance. So what is one of the major culprits of acidic blood? This comes from the book called Sugar Blues. Modern manufacturing of sugar has brought about entirely new diseases. The sugar of commerce is nothing else but concentrated crystallized acid. That's page 42. Then he says, sugar taken every day produces a continuously over acid condition, and more minerals are required from deep in the body in an attempt to rectify the imbalance. Finally, in order to protect the blood, so much calcium is taken from the bones and teeth that decay and generally the weakening begin. So the body's got to balance the chemistry. But in order to balance the chemistry, it has to rob from somewhere, it has to cause an imbalance someplace else. That's called osteoporosis, which means porous bones. And it brings us back to where it says the devil is weak bone and weak blooded because he's grafted from original. So we've talked about weak bone, weak blooded. We've talked about the mental power that's connected to high acidic levels in the blood versus higher mental abilities based on fasting, which really brings our chemical balance, our chemical acidic environment back into balance. Summary. Research shows that our thought process can ill affect our body by changing the pH of the blood into that of an increased acidic nature. The acidic nature of the blood is directly connected to various chronic diseases. Therefore, it can be said that our tone level has a connection to disease. We said individuals that are low tone, fear, anger, apathy connects to an acidic environment, which would imply low tone individuals possibly have a chemical imbalance. In doing our auditing, one of the first things we might want to do if we're straight wiring individuals, change their diet prior to an auditing session, which is, I think, one of the reasons why if you have to audit, they have to ask you, have you had a decent meal? Have you had protein? There's certain things they ask before they do auditing. Research also shows that the chemistry of the body, the acidic nature of our blood can affect our emotional state. So it's a cycle. Thoughts produce unpure blood, chemical imbalance. Our diet produces a chemical imbalance, which actually produces mental imbalance. So it's a vicious cycle that we're stuck in. The thoughts affect the emotions affect the physical body through the blood pH. And then there's another cycle that goes in reverse. The physical the pH reacts with the emotions that causes a mental imbalance. So when we say, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, may be as simple as reducing the amount of sugar that we're eating. So we say, oh Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and from grief, but we're still eating half a dozen of donuts. So we're praying for relief, but we still maintain a diet that's keeping up the anxiety and the grief. So we got to say, so Allah says he does not change the condition of a people until they change their own condition. Oh Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. He could say, well, stop eating all the ice cream. Stop driving by when the hot sign is on. For those that don't know the hot sign, that's Krispy Kreme. So if blood pH, our chemistry, affects our emotional state, it could be our own diet that is facilitating our own reactive mind and our aberration. So why does it seem like Muslims reap benefits from the Dianetic process at a faster pace? You have individuals that go through the process and they become clear more quickly how to eat to live. Our diet is different. Our diet is different. And I'm gonna hit this real quick. How do you reverse the chemical imbalance? The alkaline diet is also called the acid alkaline or alkaline ash diet that claims to alter the pH value of the human body, improve well-being, it manages weight, and it combats cancer. It is based on a concept that a few foods can cause your body to produce acid, which is detrimental. However, consuming certain foods or drinks can alter the body's acid level or pH balance. So certain foods will reverse the acid balance. What is an alkaline diet? Green leafy vegetables, cauliflower, citrus fruits, broccoli, beets, carrots. This eating alkaline-based diet mainly emphasizes mindful eating behavior comprising healthy choices of foods, including vegetables, fruits, lentils, drinking plenty of water, while limiting sugar, meat, processed foods, and alcohol. Thereby supports to enhance total well-being, shed excess fat, reduce inflammation, and lower the risk of cancer. It's what we've already been told to do anyway, how to eat to live. The modern dietary experts are only plagiarizing the wisdom that has already been given to us in how to eat to live. And if you look at this diet, based on their definition, would be considered an alkaline diet. Closing remarks. If mental illness can be connected to the chemical environment of our body and our diet, if it consists of processed food, sugar, etc., which produces a negative chemistry, can we be in an aberrated state as a result of our diet? If we are not following how to eat to live, could we be feeding our reactive mind? Are we maintaining our insanity, our own insanity? Are we crazy as hell because we can't put down the honey buns? Question.
Brother Lukeman, I think the last part of your presentation kind of highlights the diabolical nature of our enemy in making the sugary products go to those reward centers of the mind and actually become what they know is addictive. You know, that is, it's very hard. It's like giving up cigarettes or stop drinking alcohol, but something as simple as white sugar or sugar in general, it's feeding those pleasure centers, those reward centers, targeted and actually addicting us and causing it, making it difficult for us to let go of them and adopt a healthy diet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And there was much more information, but maybe I'll do a part 2 next week, Allah willing, but there's a lot more information that connects the Dianetics, the aberrated mind, the diet, the pH. There's so much more information. But with that being said and done, as always, it's time to land the plane. I pray Allah that everyone got something from this. If you want a copy of the Zoom, just put your name in the chat. I'll make sure you get a copy of the presentation. Any closing thoughts, concerns, questions, or comments before we close out in prayer? Go ahead, Sister Sharon.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam.
I came the last 2 minutes, right? But I just finished the chapter in the Dianetics book dealing with the psychosomatic illness. And what you were saying, I was just like, wow, this is right. I came on the call right on time.
That's what we talked about the whole 2 hours.
Yes, sir. Praise to
Psychosomatic
Allah.
illnesses.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Awesome class. Awesome class. All
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah.
I wanted to ask you about the last Zoom that you had. You could, email that to me. I would appreciate it.
Okay, just put it in the chat. I'll make sure you want the last one and this one then, correct?
Yes, sir.
I will do that.
Thank you.
I thought I had already sent
Brother,
out the last one. Maybe I didn't. Okay.
I didn't get it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
brother, mine.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, whew, you know, it's a wonderful thing to be a witness of what we are given already. You know, from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the book says from God Himself. God, you know, on how to eat to live. The others follow America. Our Savior has arrived. Message to the black man, but it says this is from God. You know, I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about of all those years that I worked with the mental challenged people and how difficult it was in the beginning, but the more that I became calm, the more the person I was working with was becoming calm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I hope I can get some sleep tonight. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. Praise be to Allah.
I got a lot to think about. Thank you, beloved.
Well, thank you. Thank you, family. With that, as always, I'm going to dismiss myself as I came before. So, our nation's greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.
Come on.
And make sure you put your names in the chat. And I always ask if you have any concepts or any topics that you would like to see covered in our future Zoom meetings, whether it be the mathematics or Dynex, whatever it is, whatever area you would like to see us kind of marry to the supreme wisdom or the teachings, you know, you can either put that in the chat as well, or just send your email, and I'll use your concepts or topics as the foundation for future Zoom meetings, so that, you know, if there's something specific that you're looking to understand, we can deal with that from the perspective of the Dianetics and the Islam and tie it all together.
Brother Lukeman?
Yes, sir, Brother Doctor.
Just something that may help in the part two, if you maybe look at that there are different kinds of acids in the body, and one of the illustrations that can kind of highlight exactly what you're instructing us on, the impact on our thinking. If we look at, let's say, an acid like lactic acid that comes from muscle, then we know a muscle gets sore in the presence of an abundance of lactic acid from working out. So that's the same concept of having too much acid around the neurons in the brain, that it would also have an impact on our thinking and emotions.
Yes, sir. Well, that's a topic, because I can go into lactic acid. We can deal with carbonic acid, uric acid, different types of acid that break down the body. Most definitely. That's going to be on my, that's one of my assignments. Thank you, brother. All right, dear family. Thank you for your time and attention. I pray a lot that we stay safe and stay healthy. Our families stay healthy. And I guess we will go ahead and close out in prayer. In prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master, the day of judgment in which we now live, thee alone do we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray after hearing thy teaching. Ameen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, family.
Thank you, brother. May Allah bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.